there's a lot of talk about division in the world these days. There's not just a lot of talk about it, there is division in the world these days. And those who perhaps are on a spiritual path or who seek to move beyond division, then the conversation revolves around being undivided. Yeah? But being undivided is something that cannot be found in the mind. Yeah, very often there's a kind of looking for non-division through the mind, yeah? That if only we could all agree. Yeah? If only we could all be on the same side. If only we were like-minded, then we would move beyond division, the pain of division, the suffering of division, the violence of division, yeah, and so on, to a world and a state of non-division, what we might call oneness. The problem with that is that non-division or oneness cannot be found through the mind that wants to find peace through agreement. Because that in itself means that there will be a need to convince, a need to coerce, a need to bully, a need to control, and so on, the other side, in order to make it come over to this side, where we can all then be one happy family. And that is the same, yeah, I'm talking about our interactions with the world. And it could be the interactions with our friends, with our families. Yeah, that is the world. But also with ourselves. Yeah, we can't think ourselves into a state of oneness. So what I'm pointing to here is the undivided state is beyond mind. Yeah. Just like in this little meditation, we let the mind be. We don't try to fix it. We don't try to control it, either our own mind or the minds of others. We let it be. The nature of mind is movement. The nature of mind on the surface is activity, because it categorizes. It categorizes its experience. This is wanted, this is unwanted, this is good, this is bad. This fits into this category, this fits into this category, yeah? According to whatever our own internal experience is. So we let the mind be. It's a shift of attention from the surface to the deepest, because it's always here. The unconscious state, the, let's call it ego state, the state of the majority of humanity, the state of each of us before we have fully awakened to the deepest. The deepest truth of what you are, and the recognition of the availability of what you are always as wholeness. Before that, it is a divided state. Yeah, the unconscious state, the unawake state, the ego state is a divided state, simply because attention is given to the surface activity. We have been trained to give attention to the surface activity, and the whole world invites us to keep on giving attention to the surface activity. The world is only a reflection of our state of consciousness as a whole, as a collective. Yeah? Awakening, the much coveted spiritual, what the spiritual search is about, to awaken, is not the achievement of some grand state, but a fundamental shift of attention from the surface to the innermost. It's a sensitivity to what is already here, beyond the hubbub of the surface. The thing about, the blessing, let's call it, let's call it that. The blessing of the state of humanity right now, with all its conflict and confusion and fear and so on, is that it is a catalyst for this shift, for this turnaround. Yeah. So instead of it being a matter of waiting for some moment of grace, or when you've achieved enough spiritual brownie points to awaken, with the whole myth of awakening as perpetuated by spiritual traditions, and you're waiting to be good enough, worthy enough, spiritually knowledgeable or experienced enough, and so on, in order to awaken. The world right now, the situation that we find ourselves, the divided state of humanity, is precisely the catalyst for awakening. Because it's calling us to shift attention. Whilst it is calling us to keep attention, on the surface, in the divided place, in the place of opinion, in the place of belief. It's all about beliefs now. I believe this, you believe that, therefore we are enemies. Yeah. Even though it is pulling us in that direction, it is bombarding us with opinion, with belief, with argument, with conflict, with violence within ourselves. With defense and attack, even though that is what we are constantly being bombarded with. It's the perfect catalyst. When you see when each of us sees, like popping a balloon, that we cannot go on like that anymore because it is creating more suffering in you, in the individual. It cannot go on. Something needs to shift. Attention needs to shift. And that turnaround is what awakening is, except it's not a momentary experience. It's the living of it. That's what's so powerful about the times that we live in. It's no longer reserved for those who are sitting on the meditation cushion or who are following non-dual teachings. It's for everyone. Right here, right now. We live it. We live from the undivided state. That is the invitation. What is the undivided state? Perhaps it has been glimpsed on the spiritual journey, glimpsed through meditation, glimpsed through non-dual understanding, realization, recognition, whatever it might be. A moment of peace, where the self is no longer at the forefront, in the battle zone, fighting with itself or fighting with life or fighting with others. There's no more resistance. There is only just this openness, an open awareness that allows what is to be as it is. That's peace. Finally. There's no more conflict in me. There's no more resistance in me. There's no more struggle in me. There's no more attempt to control this moment. So we have a moment of awakening out of the self, the ego self that is constantly in tension, trying to control the next moment or running away from this moment, unable to fully rest right here where it is. That's the nature of ego self. It cannot fully rest because in this rest, in this moment and the ongoing eternal moment, there is no more ego. So its survival is dependent on this tension. There is no thing, actually, an ego. It is just a description of that process, the process of trying to move away from now, the process of attempting to control, to make it happen or to stop it happening. That process we call the ego. In the full rest, in the full resting in now, there is no more ego process. And yet somehow that cannot be sustained. There's a glimpse of that, a moment of that, maybe a very long moment of that. But somehow it cannot be sustained. The world comes in again, life comes in again, and here we are back in the divided state, pulled to the surface. What I'm suggesting here, what I'm inviting you into here, is that you no longer have to have an aha, awakening, and then re-enter the battle of everyday life, because somehow in the mind, the spiritual awakening and the world and life are somehow separate, two different things. They are one. They are one. Life, the world, always has been, and now the dial has been turned up. And that is the blessing. Yes, it's the curse and the blessing. It's the challenge and the catalyst. It's the portal to see in the everyday interactions where you are giving yourself to the divided state within yourself, the place of argument, the place of righteousness, the place of needing to defend and needing to attack, the place where you see enemy. And in that moment, to turn your attention to something else. That something else is the falling into the deepest. In that moment, each of us has that capacity. It is a noticing, an awareness, a vigilance, and then a willingness to drop it. It's called surrender. The mind surrenders to the deepest. The mind surrenders to the innermost. There may still be activity on the mind. It's not about controlling that. It's just that attention is given. We could say it's attention that surrenders to the deepest. And as this is noticed more and more and more and more, then there will be an inner navigation system. An inner navigation system, because it's always here. It's just covered over by layers and layers of opinion, belief, argument, position taking, the need to control, to fix, to reject. It's just covered over. But here, underneath, is a navigation system. A navigation system that informs you when you've moved away in this moment in response to this, in this interaction, not just in a place of deep meditation, although in that place too, but as you go about your life, it informs you where you have moved away from absolute presence and absolute openness. This absolute presence and absolute openness is always at your core. That is your innate wholeness. That is your undivided state. That is your beingness. The beingness that you are before you have an opinion. The beingness that you are before a belief was formed. Before fear arises. And so on and so on. Before the ego was born, you are that. You were that, you are that, and you will be that when you die. You are that all the way through. You have an inner navigation system. Become sensitive to that, because anything that moves away is violence. Anything that moves away from this in you creates suffering in you. You feel unease. You feel fear. You feel panicked. You feel tense. You feel unsafe, misunderstood, attacked. But it's up to you to know what you are beneath that, before that. And to embody that peace and to embody that wholeness and to embody that undivided state. I say again, not by controlling your mind. It doesn't matter what you believe. It It doesn't matter what you choose to do or not do. It doesn't matter if you agree with your neighbor, with your friend, with your father, with me or with anyone else, or whether you disagree, it doesn't matter. When it matters, then you suffer. And probably everyone around you suffers too. End the suffering now. That does not mean trying to control your mind or change your mind or convince yourself or convince the other. It has nothing to do with mind or thought or belief or choice even. It's beneath that. It's here. It's about becoming sensitive to the inner navigation of this that is already at peace. And beingness is at peace. It simply moves from an undivided state, even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of division. And we can meet each other in this. It's called letting be.